table to find percents. And it's actually really, really easy if you keep it easy. So let's look up here. Mike, pay attention. Okay. What you need to do is you read your problem, you figure out your situation. When you go to a restaurant, you're going to want a tip. You're going to be going to restaurants some point in your life if you're fortunate. Chances are in high school, you're going to go to a restaurant with a group of kids and do like a homecoming dance where you go with a group and you go to Chili's and you guys order all the stuff and you leave a tip and you have to pay tax. So you want to be able to kind of figure this out before you start ordering so you have enough money, because it's embarrassing to be the person that shows up and doesn't have enough money. Plus everybody gets mad at you. So it's a good life skill. Your parents probably do this if you ever are, lucky enough to go out to a restaurant where it's nice enough that you leave a tip. So you would leave a tip at any restaurant where you sit down and order from a menu. No, because you don't sit down and order from a menu. You're not even allowed to tip at certain places. Noodles, it's part of their business model that they are not allowed to take tips there.
Why?
It's their business model. They pay their employees well enough that they don't need to tip them. When you go to a sit-down restaurant like the Cheesecake Factory, Chili's, those people that are wait tables, they don't get paid minimum wage. They actually depend on the tips, and they still have to report them as part of their tax report. If you stand in line somewhere like Chipotle or McDonald's, you don't have, tip is not expected, even though they might have a tip jar. That's different. This is when you sit down and order from a menu and get a bill and a waiter brings it to you. Lucky Pie, that's a place where you would leave a tip because you have a waiter or a waitress. Devin. So your goal is just to be able to calculate these tips. And I'm going to record it in case you need to look at it again, but it's super easy if you keep it easy. The only big question is, can you remember what 100% of a number is? So if you have to calculate a 10, 25, 15, 25, 1% value of 300, that is a super easy problem. Even though there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things here, we could do it in a minute to 2 minutes to 3 minutes, depending on how good we are at it. The biggest question is to ask yourself, what's 100% of 300?
300.
It's 300, right? 100% is all of it. So in a ratio table, 100% of the total, 100% of 300 is 300. That's how you read that. If I asked you what 100% of 200 is, what would you say?
200.
Right, it's all of it.
All of it, yeah. So it's basically you multiply.
So if you knew how to use a ratio table, you could get all these percentages. What? Right, if I want 10%, I'm going to divide by 10. Because that would give me 10 and 30. So what I know is 10% of my total is 30. What if I wanted 20%?
Then you add by, or multiply by 2.
You double, right? You multiply by 2. So I now know that 20% of my total is 60. What if I wanted 5%?
You would divide by 4.
You could divide this by 4, or even easier, divide 10 by
2.
It works both ways. I prefer this, but you're correct. 30 divided by 2 is 15. So I know 5% of 300 is.
You spend $300 at a restaurant, you get $15 tip, and it was 5%.
So yeah, so that wouldn't be a good tip.
Usually you get
Typically, you get 15% at a typical restaurant. Remember in ratio tables we learned to add columns? You could add columns because 10 plus 5 is 15. So guess what? 30 plus,
21.
no, 30 plus
15.
15, right? Add the columns is 45. Or you could have tripled, right? To get from 5 to 15, you could triple. So 15% of 45 of 300 is 45. Does that make sense? So, with your worksheet, let me just give it to you. Well, one other one. Can you find 1%, you guys?
Oh, yeah.
Can you go from 10 to 1?
Yeah. 3.
Divide by 10, right?
3.
3. So,